Hello and welcome to attaQ. My name is Jakob. I'm your host and you're watching a attaQ episode. Right here we've got Tardigrain by Erik Sigth. Now Erik is the same guy who also made String and Frekvens among another set of apps. String and Frekvens are some of my biggest favorites and Tardigrain, well, it's become one too. Tardigrain is a granular synthesizer, but unlike other granular synths, this one doesn't sound that granular. Erik specifically designed it to be able to make longer, more expressive, drone-like sounds. Now, I don't expect you to take my word for it, so I dialed up Erik and convinced him to do an interview with me. Now, I started asking him about his inspiration for Tardigrain. Had he looked at any other synthesizers out there? This is what he said.
No, I didn't really look that much on other granulars. It was more about finding a good sound, I think. For this granular, I think the main thing was creating big soundscapes. So taking a small sound and then building like a bigger. So I was kind of looking a bit at this algorithm for slowing down music. Can't remember the name of it. It's like some extreme stretching. And that's kind of the idea, to kind of stretch one sound to be a long, almost like a drone sound.
Now, I've been testing Tardigrain for a few weeks actually before it launched, and I can tell you that judging by my own ears, I do think that Erik succeeded in what he was trying to do with Tardigrain. It is most certainly capable of producing longer, more ambience-like, drone-like sounds. Look up here, for instance. Here you can see something called multipliers. Now this is all math, and math isn't my strong suit, and so I can't properly explain this to you. But do I need to? Not really. What I can tell you is this. The further down you pull these, the more grainy the sound becomes. And the higher up you pull them, the less grainy the sound becomes. Why speak like Joda I do? Yes, Tardigrain. Granular synthesis it is. Now Tardigrain has support for several things like MIDI, inter-app audio, plus it also includes an audio unit extension compatibility, so you can load this into ModStep, Cubase's, or other apps that supports audio unit extensions. Now, I need to mention that apart from being able to load Tardigrain as an instrument, you can also load it into an effects slot. Only, as an effect, you cannot use the record function, meaning you can't record audio into it. It will be used as an effect, meaning if you want to record your own sounds into Tardigrain, you'll have to use it as an instrument. As I said, I was testing Tardigrain for a few weeks before it launched, and I was quite impressed with how it sounded, the way it worked, the expressiveness, and so I had to find out what Erik did to actually accomplish this. And so I asked him. This is what he said.
Well, I think the main difference for this one to other synthesizers is that each grain is played twice and they're kind of mixed together to create a sound that is as smooth as possible. So for each note, there's 2 grains, and each of those grains are played twice with 2 playheads. So you could kind of say it's 4 grains per note. So the 2 grains can also be mixed in the stereo. You can have them one in one ear and one in the other, or you can mix them kind of together. So 4 grains per note. It kind of smooths things out a bit when you have a sound that isn't uniform.
Personally, I think it's quite a brilliant way of doing things, and I want to thank you, Erik, for doing the interview with me. Now, normally when an app catches my interest like Tardigrain has, I tend to go through each and every section of it, explaining everything. However, what I want to focus on in this tutorial is the modulation and expressiveness of Tardigrain. And so if you really need a full-on tutorial, there's already a tutorial inside the app itself, and it's quite good and easy to access. So if you need explanation for something, then you just press the question mark and then press a module, and it will tell you what the module does. When you want to close down the tutorial, just simply press the X in the upper right corner. Now, as I said, we're gonna have a look at the expressiveness of Tardigrain. And so I want you to notice this. Both the chord pads and the keyboard have XY controllers inside them. It's like XY pads, basically. And this ties to the modulation. Both the Y and X coordinates can have different functions tied to them, and to access those we have to open up the modulation menu, and you can access that by locating it at the far right side inside the sample waveform window. So when we press it, the modulation menu will pop out. Now here we can find the filter. It's got 3 modes: low pass, band pass, or high pass. And this sign here, this is just the bypass. So with this one selected, no filtering is being done. You can control the filter with the XY pad inside here. You've got the resonance on the Y-axis and the filter cutoff at the X-axis. You see, each of these elements can be switched out, except from the filter, of course, but these 4 here can be switched out. Right now it says attaQ here. If I tap down and hold, then I can switch it out to a decay instead. And if I keep dragging my finger, you can see there's a whole slew of different settings that we can have right here. Just keep in mind that you can only use one setting at a time in each of these slots, so it's not like you can set different values to different types of functions and then hope that all of them works, behind the scenes. No, one item per slot. Now, I personally love using the XY axis to control attaQ. Well, especially the Y axis, because that will allow me to control how hard or soft my sound will be, depending on what I'm playing when I'm playing it. So let's say I want to start with a soft attaQ. Then I can set that up by making sure that I have the attaQ chosen in a slot, and then I make sure that I tie it to the Y axis. Now, I'm going to choose the absolute one, and I'll explain the difference between the absolute and relative in a bit. Now this will allow me to control the attaQ over the key here inside the keyboard. But I actually want the attaQ to be soft when I play down here instead of up here. Well, I can simply just do this. I can turn this around and you see now it goes orange. And now we've turned the control around, meaning when I play down here, I've got a soft attaQ on the sound, and up here I've got a hard attaQ on the sound. Now this can be done with each of the slots, including the filter. Now the thing is, I want to be able to control the room size of the reverb. So I want a bigger reverb when I've got a slow attaQ and a smaller reverb when I've got a short attaQ. The first thing I'm going to do is to tie the room size to the Y-axis. Again, I'm gonna turn around the control area by reversing it like this. And I'm also gonna make sure that the reverb size isn't too small when I play up there, so around there. So now we're controlling both the room size of the reverb and the attaQ with the y-axis, meaning when I've got a soft attaQ, I've got a big room on my reverb. And when I've got a short attaQ, I've got a small room on the reverb. And this makes Tardigrain extremely expressive. Right, so before I round this video up, I need to explain the absolute versus the relative X and Y settings. To demonstrate this, we're going to focus on just one setting, and that will be the attaQ of the envelope. And we're going to set this to be controlled by the y-axis in absolute mode. Now, we're also going to set the sensitivity of this control to 100%, so the whole range that the attaQ is possible to move inside will be used for the y-axis. So now, when I press down my finger down here and slide it up, we can see how it's going from the minimum to the maximum value. Now, even if I tap down here, it's going to reset to 0, and in the middle, it's going to go to the middle value, and to the maximum if I tap up here. And that's how the absolute work. Now, let's switch this to still be controlled by the y-axis, but we're gonna choose the relative one. Now, look what happens when I tap down here. It's gonna go to the middle value. If I tap up here, still the middle value. Now, if I tap and slide, we can see that it's moving down, but it's gonna hit 0 before I'm done sliding the whole length of this tone. And if we go all the way up, we won't be able to access the maximum length because we're using a relative mode right now. So if I tap down here and then pull it up, we can see that I'm gonna go to the full length and it's gonna stop moving up here because we reached the full length, but we're not gonna be able to reach the minimum length now. That's how relative work. So I usually use my controllers in absolute. I kind of like being able to gradually increase something or decrease something. And usually I turn it around when it comes to the attaQ because I like having a slow attaQ down here and the bigger attaQ up there. I highly recommend Tardigrain. You can find an app link down below as usual, and you'll also be able to find links to videos of other apps that I've reviewed in the past made by Erik Sigth. Now, I think Erik has done a great job on this, and not only on that, did you know that Erik could draw? And he draws really well. Look at this. This is a piece of fan art he sent me a little while ago. It really looks like me. I just love it. It looks absolutely adorable. Thank you, Erik. So I do suggest you go grab Tardigrain for yourself. It's a unique synthesizer with lots of expressive capabilities and very well suited for those of you who like performing with your synthesizers. If you feel helped by this video, or if you feel like this video brought any value to you, if you want to help and secure the future for this channel, then why not do as many of my awesome patrons have already done and sign up over there. Now, if Patreon isn't your cup of tea, then you can always use the PayPal me link to do a one-off donation if you'd rather do that. And if you don't want to do either Patreon or PayPal, then you can always share my videos, press the thumbs up because that really helps with the ratings around here. And if you subscribe, then don't forget to press in that little bell thing because that way you'll always get notified whenever I upload a new video. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.